Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Whitman-Hanson Regional School Committee meeting of 12/11/2024. Reminder that this meeting is televised and recorded by WHCA. So I'd like to start, if everybody could join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we have no public comment, but we do have a student presentation today by some students of Duval Elementary School. So welcome.
Thank you so much, everybody. I'm Dr. Marcus, principal over at Duval. Thank you for having us tonight. We've had an exciting fall over at Duval, celebrating both old and new traditions. And tonight, we're pleased to present a combination of both. Old tradition, we've had a student council at the school for many years, and we've continued that this year with 3 members of the student council present. And new this year, we have started a weekly live TV broadcast presented by 5th graders on Friday mornings. And so tonight, we welcome you to a special edition of Nighttime Dolphin TV.
Good evening, Duval Dolphins. I'm Caden from the students class in grade 5. Today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. Lunch was nachos with ground beef and cheese. Weather today is 51 degrees with rain, so it was indoor recess. In other Duval news, November was the month of giving and gratitude. This month at Duval, we've been doing mitten tree. Students can bring in donations of hats, gloves, and scarves and hang them on the tree outside the main office. Also this month, students have been bringing in donations to the food pantry. The food will be donated this week. Lastly, the students at Duval are making cards for the community. And everybody's Osasori with morning.
Good evening, Duval Dolphins. I'm Osasori and this is Brittany. Did you know that November was the month of giving at Duval? This November, the members of Student Council made a gratitude chain and hung it outside the school cafeteria. Gratitude chain is a fun way to show what students are thankful for by writing things we appreciate on a paper strip and linking them together. Here's a part of our gratitude chain. Ours is a lot longer. Each member of the student council visited classrooms around Duval to introduce and help with creating each gratitude chain. It was a great way for students to reflect on what they were thankful for this year. So around Thanksgiving this year, some kids made a video. Let's
Ray is thankful for I'm thankful for having worked with something. I'm thankful for having working care of family. I'm thankful for my mom. I'm thankful for the athletics. I'm thankful for my friends. I'm thankful for my kids.
back to Kaden.
Now here's Ruby with more monthly news.
Good evening, Duval Dolphins. I am Ruby Fox from the Discussion Class. Here's a tutorial on the Student Council's holiday read aloud. This December, the members of the Student Council have each chosen a book to read to all of the classrooms at Duval. Yes, you guessed it, it will be a holiday book. Here is an example of a book that a member of the Student Council will read to a kindergarten to grade 5 class. After choosing our book, the 5th grade Student Council members practice reading to classrooms by recognizing clearly, treating us with students and keeping us fast and trusted. This will be a great opportunity for the members of the student council to spread some college here. Back to you.
And now for the law school motto. Acting law will be safe, be respectful, be productive, and always be kind. Have a great evening to all Dolphins.
Great job, folks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
ladies
Sean.
and gentlemen. Thank you for coming and showing us what goes on at your school. That's what we're here for you guys. So it's nice to have you show us what you do, because we can't be there during the day all the time, so thank you for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Good. Thanks for doing. Do the meeting minutes and move the table.
Yeah. Okay, so while they're cleaning up, why don't we go to the approval of meeting minutes from November 13th, 2024?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion?
Discussion.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to amend one section. It doesn't have anything about a discussion. This is important because there was something that was stated that was a miscommunication. So I want to include it in case we have to come back to it at a further point. But during the vote, when we voted to have a representation from the town, it was stated that we had to vote it. That's not true. We didn't have to vote it. That's automatic, and that's decided, and it's never decided. The person isn't decided by us. What happened was that we voted to forgo our right to choose to the chair, and that wasn't represented in that meeting. So I want to make sure that it stated that we were told that we had to vote, that we had no choice to vote yes. That was a misstatement because we have no choice to allow the person in, but it could have been mistaken, and people may not have understood. So have it later, just in case we want to revisit this. Okay?
Okay. All right. Any other omissions, deletions, comments? Okay, all in favor with the amendment? Okay, unanimous. Thank you.
And then a motion to approve the full minutes, or did I miss something?
Oh.
We do the full minutes too?
No, and now motion for the full minutes, please. That was for the amendment.
Yeah.
Now the,
A second.
okay, and so all in favor? Okay, unanimous on that. Okay,
Okay.
Jeff?
Do you have a quick report? I know you're just getting here. I don't want
Oh,
to
I'm
rush
sorry.
you.
I didn't see you get in.
I can come
I'm
back
sorry.
to you while you get set. Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect. All right, so George and Nikki are going to talk about MCAS and iReady, presentation on our diagnostics and the state assessment, so that you can see how our students are doing.
Folks, how are you? Good evening. Hopefully we can not take up too much of your time. We want to present to you a few different things today. Now, we've done this in the past. We've done it many different ways. We've done it with simply what we do for our curriculum. We've done it with let's have an MCAS presentation. We've done it with let's talk about the diagnostics and what our students are learning. Today we sort of combined it all because we do live in a different climate as far as the MCAS, and we're not really sure where that's going to go from a perspective of a graduation requirement. We now know that that's no longer a graduation requirement. We do know that we received 2 separate FAQs from the Department of Education as to where they might be going, where they might be leading. So what we tried to do was sort of give our new members and big people who maybe aren't tuned in or I don't know, don't pay attention. We're going to try to give you a whole synopsis of what we do, why we do it, and the reasons for that. And if I can not screw this up, all right. So basically what we do is based on federal laws. There are two main federal laws that we deal with in how we deal with curriculum and education. One is No Child Left Behind, and the other is ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeeds Act. The reason why we have this is because it's designed to help increase the impact of investment by ensuring that curriculum and the interventions that we have to do are implemented and proven to be effective. These federal laws drive what's DESE. DESE is known as an SEA, which is a state educational agency. So basically the feds tell the states what needs to take place. The states come up with what they do, they enact it, and then we have to follow.
And then, can I just cut in, because George was on like he'll nerdy about this part. So just to clarify a little bit, the No Child Left Behind was the original authorization. It was reauthorized as Every Student Succeeds Act, and the reason we wanted to highlight both is under No Child Left Behind, the law started to say the original law, which is Elementary Secondary Education Act, if you really want to get nerdy, in 1965 said you have to have proven interventions. When 2004 No Child Left Behind, it said those should be scientifically based. With the reauthorization in 2015 of Every Student Succeeds Act, it became evidence-based. And the reason George and I felt like it was important to kind of go back and clarify for people is we are mandated to follow this federal law and choose curriculum materials that are evidence-based that meet that criteria. So the next slide is what Every Student Succeeds Act has laid out for us to determine if a curriculum that we want to purchase meets that requirement. We don't determine that. The curriculum developers, they must go out and seek their own studies, submit those studies, and then they get vetted. So when you see a curriculum developer is partnered with an agency or a third party, that is what they're mandated to do under this law, and that's not always clear to the parents or public. So when you see, we use HMH. HMH has released a study that says that they are evidence-based tier 1. They have done that through a third-party contract, independent. If it's a tier 1, it means that the federal government has approved it to that standard up there, strong evidence, independent. So sometimes I think of it as like a drug company. Drug companies have to do their own research. They partner with people to do those things. That's kind of the model here. So sometimes it gets a little confusing for people when they think, well, these for-profit curriculums, which most of them are kind of coming out and saying we're evidence-based, but there is a process for that. And we just felt like it was really important to lay that out.
Right, so no decisions are made without evidence and without the proper process. In a nutshell, because I'm not as smart as Nikki, there are basically 4 layers, so that there's 4 tiers. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4. We use Tier 1 and Tier 2. We are what we choose. So now what happens is that Massachusetts, which is that state agency, DESE, has what they have, and that's called, what they have is high-quality instructional materials. So that's what DESE says, you should use these things. These things are evidence-based, these things are recognized nationally, and this is what we're asking you to implement and we're asking you to use. So that's what we have. But again, it goes from top down, feds to states to individual districts. You want to go with I think we could do that.
No, I mean, there is a link there. It's been shared with you. That takes you to DESE's page that says why curriculum matters and lays this out. It's the information that we follow when we're making these decisions. On the next slide, then, the other piece about this that I think is important to clarify for our public and for our committee is that there are regulations and requirements around digital learning as well. And so when we all went to school, this world did not exist. And so some of our parents who have young children in the school, this world didn't exist for them either. School is very different. It's a different experience post-2015 ESSA and in the subsequent, and I think the pandemic just exacerbated that digital learning and that digital literacy requirement. So just to clarify, The first one is from the U.S. Department of Education, their digital learning documents and research that just came out in 2024. And the piece that one of the pieces that they're highlighting is the potential of technology. So we know we're very fortunate to have some educators on the committee as well who know differentiation is like been talked about for years, and that is wonderful, but it is really hard when you have 20, 25, 30 kids in front of you to differentiate for every need in that room. What technology can allow us to do, and not all day, but for small pockets of the day, to ensure that students can actually have an experience that is exactly at their instructional level based on diagnostic and information that the teachers and the program create. The other piece is digital literacy through the state. The state requires or has an ed tech component, and you'll notice it does start K to 12 experiences for our students, and their goal, they have 3 ed tech goals, and goal 1 says that we need to provide access one-to-one, which we are able to do, and high-quality digital materials to our students. So that all ties into those asset expectations. What are we providing our students? Are the digital experiences that we are providing meeting requirements and expectations? And the other piece about that that's important for us to be thinking about is that these are active experiences, not passive screen time where a student is just sitting in front of like a movie, which, you know, there's time for that too, but this is actually active. When they talk about digital curriculum,
Sometimes with technology, there's problems.
it is active minutes. I'm not sure what happened there.
Neither one.
It sounded like we had a little,
Yeah, it's not like we just had
we had a-
power,
Yeah.
and we just had brownout on that
Yep.
machine.
yep,
Okay.
no
Good
question.
thing is I can talk Steve voice, so if we have to, we can just keep moving on.
And we did put this in, Jen shared it.
You have 4 o'clock drop in it. Usually what happens to the committee for those new members is every time we present, we put the slides in afterwards. We weren't sure about the weather tonight, so we tried to put the slides in when they were done. I will say that I had to make a last minute change before I went in because I spelled the presentation wrong.
I think it's in.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So the next slide basically is laying out that taken together, the professional staff is making these curriculum decisions based on all of these requirements. And then what we laid out for you on the next slide were the other piece.
Okay. So it's back. So the last part about digital learning and digital literacy,
We're good. I said that part.
local policy,
Yep. Oh, it's you.
yeah. So this is what we use. So these are our tier 1, tier 2 pieces. This is what we use. And I think it's important when we say, a lot of people just say we use iReady for everything. We do in different components. So what we use for curriculum for everyday instruction, we use what's called HMH into reading. That is a program that's used as our base curriculum for instruction in K to 5. We use UFly. UFly is now evidence-based. It actually comes out of James Patterson. If you ever read his books, he was the #1 person at the back of this phonics piece.
My favorite.
This phonics piece was out of the University of Florida International. That's the fly aspect of it, with the U in front of it, the University of Florida International. And those are the people in their reading and phonics department that really kicked this off. And it's had proven gains, and we use that daily. We also use what's called Hegedy. Hegedy is another component of early phonics. We use that in our K-1 classes. And for math, we use iReady Math in totality. So iReady Math is a standalone curriculum, and then it's also supplemental, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then we use for our middle school, we use HMH into literature. HMH is Hartman Mifflin Harcourt. That's the publishing company. And then we use their, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, you can finish
And
it.
then we use their component 3D, which is for our English learners. Because the goal is for every student that comes in, we're trying to get them to tie into our system, tie into the literature, and tie into the curriculum that we use to make it a more meaningful experience. The last one is illustrative math. We're in our second year at the high school. Illustrative math is for grades 9 through 11, and that is for algebra, geometry, and algebra 2.
I just wanted to clarify for people who might not be familiar with iReady. A district can invest in iReady as a diagnostic and adaptive learning tool, but also a full, not computer-based, like curriculum for math instruction, right?
That's what
Okay, and then we have both.
Yeah, we have
Okay,
both.
yeah.
So as we go to the right across, that's where that comes up. So we use core, our high-quality instruction materials on the left-hand side is our daily curriculum. We then have supplemental materials. And our supplemental materials that we use is iReady Reading, iReady Math, Lexia, which is a online version of a phonemic awareness program, IXL, which is what we use in the high school, which is a supplemental math program because iReady only goes to grade 8. And then we also use Ingenuity. Ingenuity is an online portal and software program for 300 plus classes that you can use. A lot of times it's used for credit recovery. A lot of times it's used to fill a gap for maybe the senior who needs something or somebody who might be out ill. We can also take a class on that. We have also used it for students who want like that 7th class that we don't have that might be, you know, calculus CD or something. That's an online component that you can use for that. And then the third part of what we have is our diagnostic programs. So we do diagnostics for students. Nikki, I don't know if you want to go over the number of times you can do the diagnostics.
We do the diagnostics 3 times a year per, we've talked about this before, the early literacy law that was put into effect in July of 2023 mandated that we screen our students in K-3 at least twice a year. And what we do here at Whitman-Hanson is we do 3 times a year. We do K-8. And so we use DIBELS in the K-5 and we use iReady Reading and Math K-8. The iReady Reading and Math diagnostic part that we were talking about before then is the piece of the diagnostic that creates the MyPath that the students use as supplemental. So while all of our students are having access to the same core curriculum experience as grade level, if I needed remediation or acceleration in a particular area based on MyPath, I get that opportunity now through the MyPath experience. So where George might perform in some way and then his reading comes out and says, you know, he needs more work in vocab, I need a little bit more in informational text, I'm going to get a MyPath that's designed for me, he's going to get a MyPath that's designed for him.
Right, so to put it bluntly, if I'm a 4th grader but I have deficits, MyPath might say I'm at 2nd grade for these 3 standards, so it would adjust based on what I did on the diagnostic to 2nd grade. Conversely, if you're a student who is higher than that grade level, it would then adjust to a grade level higher than what you might be in. So sometimes people say, my child's exposed to material he hasn't yet learned. Yes, because at that point in time, his diagnostic is saying that he's at a higher grade level than where he's at. So he might be a 4th grader, but his path has already been adjusted to maybe grade 5, grade 6, grade 7. iReady Path does end at grade 8. So that's why we have things even at the elementary level for those students. We had about 17 students last year who sort of graduated from their path because their grade level was higher than the current grade that they were in. And to continue and extend their learning, they actually passed out of iReady. And then we do have supplemental material that they can keep continuing on.
And I think one of the most important pieces, and we'll keep saying this, is at the end of the day, all of these things are tools. And it is the teachers that are the most important part of the equation in terms of the instructional piece. Our teachers have received PD in this. We continue to work on it. And what our teachers have access to is the data from the MyPath. And it's set up in a way that if a student isn't being successful, is whatever the case may be, the teachers have access to that information and have the opportunity and make the time to work with those students. So it's also telling, okay, George is working on his vocab, I see he's struggling with this lesson, I'm going to pull him over so we can talk through it. It's one small piece, the MyPath is one small piece in our intervention and our classroom experience. It ends up being about 10 minutes a day for students, and often it is done in a station model, so that it's one station that a student sees in a 90-minute period of reading or literacy, so that when the students are passing through, one station would be with a teacher, one station might be with a para, one station's independent, or one station might be MyPath, something like that. That's typically in the younger grades, it's used. In the middle school, it will be maybe a 10-minute warm-up as the teacher's getting the lesson ready for the day.
Middle school also has a long block because they have a rotating schedule, so a lot of it is done also there. There are times it's also assigned for homework at the upper grades, but it's assigned to be done. And when Nikki said it's 10 minutes, it's actually 9 minutes per period per subject area. So you would be on 18 minutes a day. That's active minutes. That's what we're talking about, active minutes. So it might be 21 minutes if you don't log in correctly. Like I just logged in 3 times and I couldn't get in, so it took me a little bit longer. But that's the difference. So it really is, over the course of a week, you're looking at 45 minutes per subject. So for a total of 90 minutes for the week on your path.
I got a question. All right, so the kids with the deficits, right?
Yep.
So you're saying that the thing will adjust to their deficit?
Correct.
Okay, so now, are they graded at that deficit level?
No, there are no grades on your path.
Okay,
So-
well, still, you gotta still get a grade. But if you're learning
Right.
last year's stuff, or you guys are doing whatever, fractions, and I'm still doing division,
Uh-huh.
how do you catch up? When do you catch up?
That's a great point.
Or does that compound into,
This path, though, is designed so that it's remediating, so it's helping you in your deficit skills while you're still in math class at that grade level.
Okay.
So the goal, and we'll get into that because it talks about 2 types of growth, typical growth and stretch growth. But the goal of this is to say, for the first time really since COVID, for the years we've had at Whitman-Hanson, it's the first time we can say where you're at, what grade level you're at.
Which is awesome.
What your deficits are, and then give you a plan to catch that up. And so if the research states, because it's a tier 1 and tier 2, the research states that if you have the right number of minutes, which is 45 active minutes a week in front of this, you will increase those deficits. But the beauty of it is so you don't keep lagging in MCAS while you're in your regular math time, you're learning your grade level pieces.
And 2 other pieces, I just wanted to touch on, to add on, Glenn. So that's one piece that my path may be 10,
Yeah.
maybe 9 minutes a day, but then the student probably is in an intervention group then for that, because that's it.
like during their win?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Separate from this piece.
Good.
So.
And then you can catch up in the win as well?
Absolutely.
So it's
Okay,
not
I just didn't want to see kids getting left behind but still getting the trophy.
Right, right.
Right. The teacher has this data and they know, and there's another tool for iReady that's called your prerequisite skills. And so the teachers can pull that when they're about to do a lesson and see, okay, where are my kids at? So there's a lot of other pieces to this. And then the other piece I just wanted to note was we happen to have already had pre-planned prior to that we knew we were going to do this presentation today, an iReady PD yesterday with our admin team again to go over how do we use this tool effectively, how do we help the teachers use the tool effectively, because again, it is just a tool. It is only as effective as the hands in which it's put into that feel confident in that.
So I'm assuming a lot of this has come up because of communications to the school, and the questions are something that might have been influenced in. And when reading that communication, maybe I'm taking from it differently. It is an interface with screens essentially, and I'm thinking about that we have a diverse student body. Some of them have ADHD, some of them have physical intelligence. They learn while moving, some of them are socially intelligent. And we saw this during COVID, learning from the screens. Sometimes did amazing things for one kid.
Right.
And you could really tell where they were at. And sometimes through this particular mechanism, some kids just weren't interfacing. We couldn't even, you can't gauge as well, even where they're at because of the material, the tool they're using to express their ability. What is our path if that child is not, I know we have to get them to some proficiency, but in terms of to have the parallel learning that we know that they're learning in their comfortable spaces and learning technology at the same time.
So that's when we put it in that supplemental, and so some of those decisions and the ones in particular that you're talking about, which would maybe come more after like a team discussion, after the data's come out, then that's why it's supplemental. And even that a team might make a decision for a student based on the data that they've tried it. We're not going to not try these things. It's a tool, but at some point a team might decide we need to supplement with a different tool. And again, this is only the 10 minutes of the totality, so I think that there are a few occasions, but they're really very few that, because it's so minimal in terms of the time in which we're asking students to be on, but there are individual team decisions that might happen where, and again, because we're saying this is housed in our supplemental column as a supplemental use, but the vast majority of our students are utilizing it, and we're going to show like why we want that to be the case, but we're not, it's like a medication, you wouldn't keep prescribing something that's not being effective. And so what I would say is we look at the data, we get data 3 times, but we get ongoing data. And so from the data team meetings, if a student is consistently not achieving what we expect them to achieve, utilizing this tool, the teams, the building-based teams are going to have those discussions for sure. And it reminded me of another piece with when our I-Ready person came yesterday. What she commented on was, we looked at minutes, and some of our kids are going way beyond, and because they're doing it at home, and some parents are having. So it's like the kind of the reverse situation of some of the other concerns. It's parents are like, go on, we want you to go on, and now she was saying that's the saturation. We got to say we can't do that either. Like 45 minutes is our sweet spot. Like we don't want to go beyond that. Sometimes there are weeks when we don't get there. Our goal is always between 30 and 45 with a max of 90. We have kids hour and a half, 2 hours, because they're and good on the, parents want to do and have their kids move on, but we have to do a good job of communicating. This is one tool in the toolbox. It is for this short amount of time, but there are other things like reading with the kids at home or having them have the book or, all of those sort of older school things that we know. So,
And I
there
think
is that.
to address that, what we're trying to do really, and what we're trying to really focus on now through the K-8 level is groupings. So when you are in class, you are now doing station work. So that station work is now the mix of students working together, teacher doing direct instruction with the students working some online, but now you're moving throughout the room. So it helps with the transitions, it helps to move, and it helps to keep the class going to, again, affect this differentiation. Like when you and I went to school, 25 kids sat in a class, and we were in 4th grade. But my experience in 4th grade, your experience in 4th grade, your experience in 4th grade might have been very different because I didn't have those skills for that grade level. So what this does is put the tools in the hands of the teacher to say, I know how Jeff learns best, I know how Beth learns best, and now I have to change maybe and design my system so that the classroom looks different so I can have those pockets.
You're bringing up kind of what I'm asking. And I'm going to use an example of the Lexia, because I have dyslexia. I'm going to be open about that. Lexia uses a model with larger print. And I'm telling you, if I don't increase the print, I literally cannot read. There's like glasses. It is just how the mind works, and you're just not going to change these things. So what if this, and if I'm reading some of the things coming in, what if this particular tool is not reflecting what this child can do, right? Because they're not interfacing with it correctly. Yeah. And we have an outlier here. We're going to have outliers on both sides. What is the, as a parent, if I had a child that was not interfacing and I didn't know how or why or what it was, and every child is different. And we're going to find some things that just work generally well, but what is the path there, and how do we remedy? Of course, it generally works, so it's great, it's good. But, how do we remedy and work with that parent and make sure that child's having a great educational experience? That's
right.
kind of
what all of those are. I will say confidently in any particular case, even in the one that you might be referencing, I'm at a conversation with the principal. Those individual decisions, absolutely, I'm very confident will be addressed, readdressed, discussed, and decisions will be made for sure that are always going to be in the best interest of the student first and foremost. And I will comment too, like Lexia is a supplement that we use for some of our students who aren't actually ready for I-Ready, some of our L students, for example. So we are making substitutions and
for those,
for different cases.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. You want us to say?
I just wanted to note, and I think Kara said it earlier, the 3 diagnostics that the students take per year, it's not the end all and be all of where kids are being assessed on what they can do and what they can't do, correct?
Correct. That's part of it, but it is the number one piece we use now in this day and age in the technological world, from federally and state-wise, that for the first time ever, we have the ability to say how you're learning, where you're learning, and what that looks like. Now, again, all students are different. There is no one-size-fits-all model. But this is the first time that we can say in a class of 24, there are 24 different levels. This class has 24 different learning styles, and there are students at 24 different paths of how they learn. And so for the first time, we can start to say what has to change in the classroom, what has to change in the delivery of instruction and the instructional materials that we're given, so we can do our best to make sure all 24 advance, receive the skills they need, and then can continue on a profitable way in order to get their education.
I'm doing classroom visits right now in the elementary in particular, just because my experience has always been at the high school. I was a high school teacher, I was a high school administrator before going into central office, and so I just want to know more. So I have been doing classroom visits, and I was in a classroom, and it happened to be during this time that they were doing stations. And to what you had said, when they went to break up, the teacher said, when you are doing your independent work, find a place in the room and meet. Some of the kids stayed at their desks, some of the kids went to the standing desk, some of the kids went to the seats and things like that. So that was really interesting and fun to kind of get to see how this sort of flexibility was happening. And the diagnostic piece is a piece that lets us know about our interventions or enrichment or our extension part of it. It informs the teachers, inform instruction. They can use it to create groups so that when they're breaking down their small groups, they know, I'm going to put this group together because I know that they are all struggling, again, on vocab or fractions or whatever it is. I'm going to do this. But then the classroom curriculum piece still has their components with their ongoing assessment. In our district, we are moving to constantly say assessment isn't evaluative, it's informative. That is our motto. That is what we always say. Assessment isn't evaluative. If you are thinking you're evaluating children, that you need to reframe that. It is informative, and it's informative for our instruction, and it's informative about who our kiddos are and what they need. So we are trying to reframe too. So we do diagnostics as one piece, and then the curriculum. That's why we're trying to separate that out too, to show people we do curriculum, we do supplemental, we do diagnostics. Because it does get confusing for people and our parents to know what is happening and where is it all coming from.
Garrett, did you have a comment?
I mean, I just had a couple of thoughts. I think no program, curriculum, technology is perfect or is going to is going to replace good teaching, right? So I think that every program is going to have some areas that need to be filled in and some places where it falls short. And as a teacher, I also use iReady, not the core curriculum, but with the diagnostic and the MyPath. And there are some areas that are not perfect. However, I think it is part of thinking more holistically, and especially when we're thinking about elementary level. Elementary teachers are, by their very license, generalized to have a wide breadth of curriculum knowledge. And I think they're also expected to know students and their learning styles in a much more minutia type way, right? We spend all day, every day with them. And so I think, to Rosemary, to your point, I think the iReady MyPath cannot replace good instruction. It can supplement it. And then we also have to realize that teachers, especially at the elementary level, are always mindful of different learning styles and different needs, and are using these tools, but also using all the other things they have in their toolkit to target instruction where it needs to be targeted. So I think that there's I agree that there are some kids that maybe technology is not always the best piece. And so for that 10 minutes, maybe it isn't ideal for them. But there are other kids who maybe, they need more hands-on manipulative work in math. And that's, so when they're in a workbook page, maybe that's not ideal for them. And there's the role of an effective teacher is to know that and try to address it as comprehensively as you can, knowing that there are 24 different students with 24 different learning styles. So I think that there are some, just without going on too much, I do think there are some legitimate questions we could ask about iReady, like we could about any program, but I do think that there's, I think A lot of it is putting faith in our administration and our teachers in terms of, their professionalism and their capabilities, so.
Go ahead.
I'm all for self-paced. I mean, I'm of the age of SRA kits, which I thought were the best thing in the world. I flew through those. I loved them. But I think I guess my big concern is not every kid is, at 2 mastering their parents' iPhone. So I think that, and I actually know the family who wrote the letter. And I bragged about the schools, which is part of why they moved here. So I just want to say, if there are children who are struggling, and this is one child who is struggling, there are probably a lot of other kids who are. Is it an issue with not being comfortable with the technology? Or is it an issue with not being comfortable with the material? And I don't know how in kindergarten you differentiate that, because when I was in kindergarten, we learned about Mr. G and Miss H, and how together they made certain sounds. So the fact that these kids are having to learn at this pace that we never had to, I think is a lot. As a parent of a child who has school avoidance over the past couple of years because of anxiety, I feel like this particular situation is just illuminating that we are maybe doing some kids more damage than good. So personally, if I were that teacher, I would be like, look, these are your options. If there are 9 stations, you have to go to 7 of them, pick. And I don't know if that's something that they can do.
And individually, those were some of the conversations we have had.
Okay. And then the other thing I'm curious about, I mean, obviously, Carrie, you're familiar with iReady. I've never used iReady. I guess
My children use it all the time.
Mine too.
The user in the room. So I can say, I'm familiar with Edgenuity. And if I had to do all my learning through Edgenuity, I would have dropped out of school by now.
I think that's another thing, though.
It's not all the learning.
No.
That was-
Right.
Okay.
If we're going to have a conversation, we should have a conversation. Because we have a core curriculum, and this is a supplemental curriculum. The supplemental curriculum right now is 9 minutes a day in math, and then 9 minutes a day in ELA. That's how it's used. That is not the core curriculum. They have 90 minutes aside of that for literacy. They have 60 to 90 minutes every day for their math program. So if we're going to talk, let's talk. But we also have to say that in a public institution, we have policies and there's people who make these decisions in order for what's best. And we use the federal, we use the state, we use what we know as professionals who went to school, because I love that SRA. I blew through the protocols. I remember Hunter Mastery Learning, because I'm probably older than you. I just went to the file cabinet, took it out, finished it, put it back.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that this is not the core curriculum. The core curriculum looks like education. But what we can do now in education is to say that I can say that in the same class of people here, there's 5 different learning styles. And some are higher, some are lower, some have a deficit, some don't. Some can group work better, some don't know the parts of a sentence. And I can actually use data and technology to help instruct my class.
Okay, one more.
Wait, this too, go ahead, John.
No, because I call Dawn, and then the conversation's over, because we need to get going, okay? Because you have to remember, curriculum is not our purview,
Yes.
okay? It is their purview. So we're here to listen to what has been working, and they'll let us know what doesn't work. And we have to remember that it's 9 minutes a day. The teachers are the main teacher, experts to the kids. And if they're not doing their job, then that's an issue also with them. So we do have to remember that. So Dawn?
My comment is the piece of curriculum that is the purview of 10 people in this room is approving the curriculum.
Right.
So I'm pleased and thank you for sharing the grid of curriculum, because I'll be honest, there are some titles here that we're using that I'm not familiar with. I've been on the committee for 5.5 years now. I can honestly say I don't recall ever having a vote to approve curriculum. So my ask of the administration simply going forward, and this kind of leads down budget road, is could we have, and I wrote it down. We have a curriculum cycle. If we could simply see, when did we purchase these? And I'm not asking to go back to say, we didn't approve that. It's simply to see budgetary-wise. What is the cost of each of these curriculum? And what is the life cycle? And I think we visited this a year or two past. We talked about science curriculum, social studies, we haven't touched on that. So that's my ask within our purview going forward into budget season to understand the curriculum we're currently using, what the cost is, what the life cycle is, and so the towns can understand going forward, this is what our cost is going to be to educate students.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Continue. You guys can continue. George?
So, this, what we are showing here this is how our students performed in the MCAS in the spring of 2024, and our end-of-year diagnostic. And so, I'm not going to go through all of these. This is really a way to kind of see where the graph and the end-of-year line up. So, we're just going to click through, so you can see we're pretty close between where our students scored in the MCAS and where our end-of-the-year diagnostic performed. So again, 4th grade, and 5th grade, and 6th grade for our MCAS end of year, and 7th grade. We did not do 8th grade because we did not do an end-of-year diagnostic because they take 4 MCAS exams, and that was just...
Remember last year was the first year of the civics, and we tried to help out.
Yeah, so we didn't do that. But what these graphs are showing is our students on the MCAS and our students in the end of year are pretty commensurate performance-wise. And why that matters to us, going back to all of those pieces, the curriculum that we use in the classroom, that again, and we keep saying the same thing, that at the end of the day, that the teachers are doing and imparting and working with the students, and the supplemental materials, hopefully this would be our outcome.
So what you see here is, so this is based on your path, but the reason why we're bringing it up is because on the left-hand side, you will see that that's what a student did on the left-hand side.
Beginning of year.
Wait, I gotta read this with my contacts. For no additional growth is what they did when they took their diagnostic. Their beginning of year diagnostic in September. That's how they scored. In grade 3, that's how they scored. What the MyPath Learning piece does gets a little bit to what Glenn was saying, but it also says that students are given 2 types of growth. The middle column is your average growth as a kid in a grade level. So at the end of grade 4, you will have amassed some knowledge, given the curriculum, and that's where you should make an improvement that would be a projection of how you would do on MCAS. That's called typical growth. What iReady also does, when you get your MyPath, they have something that's called stretch growth. And stretch growth is the one that if a student can attain stretch growth is attained by not only the MyPath, but the data that's associated with how you're doing in the class every day and the work that the teacher does with you. If you can get to stretch growth, you can see that students would move, on the right-hand side, if you looked at, would move many percentage points better and get more students back to grade level sooner by stretch growth. And stretch growth is achieved by not only your path, but the work that's done in your regular math classroom during the course of the day and year. So that's where it takes in instructional practices, that's where it takes in all the different pieces that you use. There's a toolbox that goes along with this for teachers that has hundreds of different ways in order to interact, in order to teach, in order to identify, so that when you're doing your instruction, both online and not, in regular math class and regular small group, you can try for stretch growth. And if you can try for stretch growth, then it is proven scientifically and research-based that students will then be able to make up a greater amount of learning loss or a greater amount of deficits from a grade level than if not doing it. That's what these things show.
And so this is just the projections. We put it in there for the elementary grades for you, 6, 7, 9. And then, so the summary, do you want to touch on this?
Sure. So if we go to a summary, what does it all look like? So we tried to show a connection between MCAS data and end-of-year data. And the biggest difference we have in MCAS data and end-of-year data is that once a time, when we had MCAS, we would just get that in September, but the grade already graduated to the next grade. So your fourth grade scores, I would get in August or September grade when you're in grade 5, and then we tried to make changes in curriculum after you come back from the summer, and there really wasn't that. So these diagnostics allow you to do it real time, real action for the students in front of you. So we tried to make that connection. MyPath does benefit performance, which you can hypothesize that and say will be reflected in the MCAS. So if you can take the data out they're doing on their MyPath and you can get them to not only typical but to stretch growth while you're teaching them every day, daily, then you can hypothesize that they will do better on MCAS. Now, MCAS was only removed so far for the high school graduation piece. They are coming up with something else, but MCAS is still there. So if you're like a 6th grader, nothing changed. If you're a 7th grader, nothing changed. If you're an 8th grader, nothing changed. 9th grade, you still have to take it. That's going to be the big piece because the number one thing that changes in MCAS is the human body and how you feel about adults, teachers, and testing in general. So, I really do believe that a 3rd grade teacher can make her class love her and they're going to do the best they can on the MCAS and get a great score. Not so sure at the 8th grade level if that's going to really pan out for like the science test, especially now in the 9th and 10th grade. So that's going to be the big piece of what MCAS looks like moving forward, and then what happens to MCAS, because there's all kind of rumors.
But they're still going to use it for district accountability data.
They will still use
Which, George, can you tell us what that means? Those of us who teach 10th grade English? I mean, I think that that's a really key piece, right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So basically what happens is that the state holds each district for what's called accountability status. Accountability status measures many different things, but basically in a nutshell, it measures how are our kids learning. How do they learn as a whole? So all 3,600 kids. How do they learn as a grade? How do they learn as male? How do they learn as female? How do they learn as special ed, low income, all the little subgroups? And accountability status is different. So I will tell you this, in 2003 or 4, when I got here when I was a young man with no grade, we had some serious issues with our accountability, especially the school I was at, in middle school, and we had to work our way out. There was intensive state pieces. Right now, with accountability, we are making moderate progress towards all of our targets as laid out by DESI. And there is absolutely no issue, group, school, or district requiring any assistance or intervention from the state. So yes, we have identified pockets of improvement. Of course, we want to improve. But at this point in time, from the designation of the Department of Education, there are no needs, and I said the same thing last year, there are no needs for requiring or assistance or intervention, and we are making moderate progress towards our targets. Some schools are higher, some schools are lower, some schools are right at that level, but as a district, that's what really counts. We are fine and we are okay.
And so that all of the schools will still have to take the MCAS, will still be reported. There is a concern then because will the kids where they used to care in 9th and 10th grade, like will they have that same buy-in? We'll have to see how that goes and will that affect accountability status? Well, that's yet to be determined. The state for graduating class of 2025, whatever your current local requirements are, that's it. And MCAS obviously does not impact graduation. For graduating class of 2026, the current guidance out right now has said for the 26 and subsequent grades, they will be giving guidance from DESI about what you need to do. So we'll get more and we'll then present that all to you.
That was a big TBD today.
Right.
To be determined. Just as you wrap up, thank you. Really good job. Well done. And I think going over the whys are really important for people at the table and for people at home. We implemented interventions too over the past couple of years. These go hand in hand. So where we look at our diagnostics and where those students are going, we were talking about, everybody's got a different learning style. Without the supplemental intervention, and people who analyze that data, we're not where we are today. So when you brought up budget and we start talking about money, it's a people piece too. It's a curriculum, it's a financial for our curriculum, but we also need those folks who do the outside the classroom work, the interventionists, district-wide and building-based, to be able to break that down and then go to each individual student or groups of students to help them on that daily basis. So it all ties together, and that's where we see the most growth.
You will see that when we talk about curriculum, elementary iReady is up. been 6 years. It's up. It's going to be up next year, so that's going to be a budget impact. Depending on how that goes, at one point it was qualified for in the budget, and we made cuts. So it might not be now, so you'll see that. We'll talk about that, but that is up. We are in year 4 for ELA, but we are at the end of year 6 for iReady for the elementary school. That is the K-5.
So if we're making decisions, and this is still iReady, you've been here long enough to tell us, have you seen that this software has had a positive impact?
It's had a very positive impact on student growth. It's had a very positive impact on outcomes for MCAS, and it's also had a positive impact on students learning and getting closer to grade level than they previously had before we had. It's also provided the teachers an insight into say, how can I use my instructional materials? How do they have to change so I can make sure I can meet kids where they're at so they can learn?
So essentially, essentially, we're going to have to, for what we can do in our purview is budgeting, make sure that we have the teacher in the classroom that has the right amount of
tools and students and all of the above.
They can pivot when a child cannot interface this program.
Hopefully, they always have done that.
Right. That's the goal. But that is.
Hopefully, they've always done that. Anyway. Okay, thank you.
Carrie, I have one more.
Right.
I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
You want to do your student advisory report?
Point of order, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Kayla, excuse me. I know parent letter is on the agenda. Are you actually going to address it?
Well, they kind of just did, so.
Okay. Well, I was waiting to see if it was actually addressed because I do have an important.
Yeah, so I think we should because it's on the agenda. And I thank you. I
know people referenced it.
Correct.
So
Thank you.
I don't know, but
I was looking at her anxiously awaiting to give her report, but I think we should talk about the parent letter now and then bounce to the student report.
if you had something you needed.
Nope. I think you're fine. But I will say that the school committee received a parent letter. It came via U.S. mail, which I usually don't get. I usually get everything by email. I think we got it on Monday night, Monday before Thanksgiving. We opened it up on Tuesday, talked to Beth and Hillary post-Thanksgiving. I asked Nikki to read it and kind of put together some information. So I didn't want you to get something blind because I knew the next question was like, well, what is this and what do we do about it? But it was addressing kindergarten and some questions about the curriculum in kindergarten. So
my particular follow-up, I'll be brief, is on the last page of the letter, and it's, so if you have it, just to reference what I'm going to say, is number 3. And it's one sentence. It says, provide parental consents if there is a potential for data collection. So this parent seems concerned about consent, right, and approval. So I'm going to go back to our policies. So I found 2 policies that we have that are online, and one is under IJND, Curriculum and Instruction, and there's a section that says Permission and Agreement Form. So my question to follow up is that our policy says a written parental request shall be required prior to the student being granted independent access to electronic media, and that the required permission agreement form shall be signed by the parent and also by the student. So I'd be happy to make a motion to refer this to our policy subcommittee if we need to review permission and agreement forms.
I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, I was just going.
So we can have discussion. So I'll make a motion to refer policy IJND, also IJNDB, which is network access policy. So if we weren't aware in the committee that the one I just mentioned is a parental permission agreement form, and then under network access policy, there's another signature network access agreement. And maybe this is connected with the laptops that go out and so forth, but it also refers to parental signature and agreement. So I just want to tie that into what the parents asking about consent. You know, did you get consent? So this is what we have.
I think to follow up or maybe to answer that, educational companies, software companies don't collect student data, personal data. So it's not right. It's like education policy, like beyond us. that companies that work to bring curriculum electronically into school do not collect private data from students. So iReady doesn't collect.
That's not my concern. My concern actually, I think, is it sounds like the student was given a device and started using it, and the parent says, what if I don't want my child to use the
You
device
sign
in school?
we sign a Google, parents sign a form.
Right. So I think
we're
she
doing
was
it.
asking,
So we're doing it.
Can we offer consent? So it may already exist. So that's
that's
why I
what she's
want to
saying.
be able, someone has that communication, that if our policy has it that all parents and students are signing this, what are we?
Steve?
There has been, and everyone, there has been a form, and I know from working in the computer labs, and volunteering in the schools, that there were students that they had to do other activities because they didn't have a signed form and so forth. So I know how.
We have kindergartners sign a form, because that's what this
I don't know
policy
if
says.
So
Students.
certainly the parents.
I don't see a problem with bringing that to the policy subcommittee.
Right, and
You know,
that
so
policy
this
was
is-
probably written before all of this,
Yes.
too, so it probably needs to be looked at anyway.
Understandable. So
Right.
my
So-
motion is to refer.
I don't even think you need a motion. I think we can put it on the,
Yeah.
just those two?
I think we should make a motion just to make it, so it gets done, and
Sure, if you want to make it.
back to the parent and say we've done something.
You're looking for a motion, I guess?
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh.
All in favor?
Just to keep it.
Perfect.
Okay.
And just, can you read for Jen, just those two policies again?
Oh, sure.
Just make sure.
It's under IJND, called Curriculum and Instruction. And the letter I is under instruction, so that's what that begins. And then the other one is the same, IJNDB, Network Access Policy. So that has another authorization form.
Okay, thanks, Jen.
Yeah, because I can remember doing that
Regarding-
network authorization a long time ago.
We can look at it, again, that's fine.
Yeah.
You ready to roll? What do you got?
Aye.
So I just have an update on what's going on, like within the high school and stuff. This is just the high school, none of the other schools, but kind of detailed. Include a lot of different clubs, sports, and like even like academic activities. So first, the robotics club hosted a next tournament on November 16th, and the next tournament will be Saturday, December 14th. At these tournaments, students have their robots compete in all different sorts of challenges in 5 different like rings. And then students also compete in the teaching portion of the competition, just off their knowledge of robotics. The next is High School Speak Club with their president, Gianna Ruggiero, who's on the student advisory, held an angel giving tree with, in a few days, all 100 of the angels were taken. So to kind of supplement and give more donations, they held an Adopt a Family donation event that was equally as successful. I know for a fact they delivered all the gifts today in the pouring rain. Just to give back to families in need. The Spanish Honor Society did a similar thing. I know most of the advisory, the student representatives are on Spanish Honor Society as well. They did a toy drive as well. I know there's a box in the library and again in the lobby that is running through this week, and they're just collecting donations. The English department is hosting a poetry out loud competition on January 16th, where students can compete to win a prize and even advance to the regional, state, or national level. I know sometimes they're giving out cash prizes towards like poetry education or just some cash prizes for scholarships, I think. And then student athletes just completed winter trials last week and had their first full week of practices this week. Boys and girls basketball as well as the hockey team had their first scrimmages this week and had their first MIAA games next week. We had our pep rally the day before Thanksgiving recess, and then we also had the football game against Abington, which is an annual thing, and Abington did win this year. The varsity cheerleading team, alongside cheering for the boys at every single football game, placed 4th in their state meet this season, but they also placed 1st in their regional competition. The band and chorus are performing their annual holiday concert on the district-wide half-day on Friday, December 20th during the school day kickoff holiday break. And 60 members of the junior and senior class were inducted into the National Honor Society. The individual honor societies as well, like the English Honor Society and Business, are holding applications right now and are having their induction in the spring. Every single one of the student advisory members guys were inducted into the National Honor Society, so that's kind of cool.
Okay, nice.
And then me and Gianna attended the Best Buddies leadership, me and Gianna, the Best Buddies leadership team, as well as the high school student council, attended the Silver Lake Leadership Summit, and then Carver High School was there as well. And then also there was the Unified Sports Conference in East Franklin, and all working on inclusivity and teamwork. And then there's also, I think that's it, actually.
You forgot an important athletic event on the night of the rally, the Powder Puff game.
I didn't include, I chose not to say.
You chose not to say that because a certain group of seniors won, right?
The seniors did win.
7-6
The junior,
on an extra point with 2 minutes to go.
it's hard to talk about.
The juniors dominated the game. The seniors had one play, a 72-yard run
Yeah.
with 4 minutes left to play. The juniors dominated the game. But
Get them next year.
yeah, so I was curious why you were avoiding that topic. A lot of good stuff going on at the high school around Thanksgiving, around the holidays, around Christmas, a lot of giving. When we do our next unified event at the high school, I'll make sure that the committee knows.
Yes, please.
Because it's a pretty outstanding display of our school.
And also the Best Buddies. Let us
Yes.
know when Best Buddies are.
I know for a fact that we're planning our unified basketball game, which is open to all students to join and at least be a part of to play. And I know they're opening it to like parents or anybody else who wants to come. I think it's going to be January 24th. It's a half-day school. We're still waiting for approval on that.
Sure, that'll get approved.
That'll get
approved.
Hopefully.
So, and it's just a great event. It's a great event. The school comes together in a way we don't see it a lot.
One brief follow-up. When I met with the students, they're very astute. Their first question was about the mass ballot question 2 that passed. And they were asking me all these MCAS questions. And one of them, the answer came today in the document from DESE, which was the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship.
in
They
public,
they
yep.
were on top of
Sure.
that. So I said, I don't have the answer, but it came today. Did you see my email?
Yeah, I did. I was just reading it actually while you guys were talking.
I was like, look, so.
Our question was just about if the Abigail Adams Scholarship would still be in place, because I know a lot of like my friends and stuff have all like commented on that, or like just been questioning it because we tried really hard at MCAS. And it said today that the programs will still continue to utilize the scores of MCAS assessments as qualifications for the awards program.
That's the reason they should.
Yep.
It's a PDF with, I think in total, 19 questions that were answered. So.
Awesome, thank you. Moving on, I went, and Mr. Kane is here, but I went to the Whitman Select Board meeting on November 12th, and I know they were talking about the budget, and the school budget came up. If you can watch the YouTube of it, it's pretty good. I know there was a lot, we're talking budget, and nobody ever wants to talk budget, and it's always not great to the financial forecasts from the state, from the towns, are not ever outstanding, like, hey, whatever you want, you're going to get. But Sean gave a presentation, and I think he clarified some points that have been out and about. He wants to work collaboratively with the school district, and he made a very clear statement that the assessment is set by the regional school district school committee, with the hopes that we collaborate together to see where the towns are at. And some of the stuff, some of the ideas that he came up with were pushing against some of the other selectmen and some ideas out of the box, knowing, and I think being upfront, saying that 44% of the town budget goes to the school district, and I'm just summarizing briefly. And 44% of the growth would always go to the school district. Now, I'll challenge that we need to do better, because 44% is a little bit lower than most towns, okay? So it's something that I would talk to our committee about and do a little research about what the towns are actually contributing out of their budget to educate the students in their communities. But what Sean also said was, looking at other sources of revenue that haven't been looked at before as supplementals. And he talked about the meals tax in the town of Whitman. And instead of moving meals tax money over to free cash or to OPEB liabilities, looking at a way to supplement the school district budget with some meals tax monies and committing that. So there was some discussion back and forth, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we can have those discussions. I don't know if we'll ever agree eye to eye, because the select boards in each community really want to make sure that the taxpayers in their communities are serviced. Our charge here and my charge here is to make sure that our students are taken care of. The folks that can't vote and the folks that maybe don't know better, and we're here to educate them. So I think the dialogue was decent. I think that's one of the takeaways that I did see and would ask, and we will build that as we build our budget for FY26, is where do we compare on the charts to other communities in the commitment of resources from the town? Is it a percentage base? If I can get a definite percentage base that I would know from every community every year, I would know. Or is it a percentage increase of the budget every year? And I know some communities do that. Not an assessment. We're not talking assessment. A typical overall percentage of your budget, you're only allowed to go up 3% or 3.5%. And I know some communities do that. And I know sometimes they still go over and they run a deficit. So I think as we start talking, I'm glad again that the select board took this up. I'm glad it was, voiced out loud to public that it's your decision to set the assessment. We'd like to, again, get all sides on board, Finance Committee, select boards in both communities on the same page. However, it is up to the school committee to validate and vote an assessment 45 days prior to town meeting, and that assessment would go on the town meeting warrant as an assessment for the community. So that's all I really wanted to say. It was positive. I'm glad that I went, and I'm glad I heard some things, because there's a lot of rumor flying around and what said out loud and on social media, whatever, but I'm glad I went and I heard some things, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we can work together to make things happen. I don't think, again, we will ever agree eye to eye, and there's never a pot of money for everybody. However, we still will continue to strive to do the best for our students in our community while being as efficient. And I think my administration in the 6-7 years that we've been here has tried to be as efficient in finding ways to get the biggest bang for our buck as possible and not waste taxpayer money. So I just wanted to share that with folks.
Just quickly, I did watch that, and I think Steve Boyce, you remember, when I was on Finance Committee, I was coming in and talking about your OPEB liabilities and the risk financially, where we can meet both places. That's where you usually start when you want to compromise. Where do we agree? And the towns borrow their largest projects through the schools. Whitman's borrowing for that middle school through us, and that can really, not having a real investment in OPEB makes a difference. Having bad E&D makes a difference and negatively affects the taxpayer. So
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that's a place that
I think we can
land. But I also want to point out that it does, I think 100,000 is used for OPEB for the towns. Well, what happens when it goes over? It goes into their, their free cash. That other section does go into their free cash. Additionally, 44% is way below the average. So rolling forward at a low continually keeps us frozen in a place where we can't address E&D. We can't address this. We can't address the flexibility in the classroom, which, some of these letters from the parents are talking about, hey, my kid needs a different path forward. We can't address that. So our objective, as Jeff said, is to make sure that these kids can go out into this world and be active citizens in an equitable way. Even in our Massachusetts Constitution, we have to provide that no matter if you're wealthy or a poor town. It doesn't matter. We have to still provide those same opportunities. So that's why rolling forward really
we'll talk about it more
with a percentage. Yeah. But rolling forward, it was said it was fair. It absolutely is not fair to roll forward just as a percentage without looking at the percentage that you have now. You have to look at it, as Jeff said, in the
We're going to look at it, but it's a good point.
Just a question, just brief. The 44%, was that just Whitman-Hanson Regional School District, or was that all schools, like the Voc and the Aggies?
I think that's just the education budget.
It's all
I'm not sure. I
Okay.
didn't know.
Yes.
That was just stated.
It's all educational spending.
So, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in regards to the meeting, the word I heard repeated a couple times by Mr. Kane was hold harmless.
Yeah.
So we cannot not talk about that. And I won't take up a lot of time talking about it now.
Because we're not on budget now. That's not on.
But it's part of the discussion that happened at Whitman Town Hall and at a select board meeting. So we, Beth, chair, respectfully, this committee needs to have the opportunity to have the same conversations that are happening in our town halls. So respectfully, I do want to remind folks, hold harmless is happening. And 2 years ago, we invited Desi to come in and explain hold harmless and talk about it. And it's the difference in the foundation aid. The aid we got last year versus the aid that we're eligible for going forward in the next year. And when that aid is reduced, our aid payment from the state is not reduced. We get the same amount of money, but sometimes because of changes in inflation factor, property values, income, wage adjustment factor, enrollment, and the municipal revenue growth factor. We don't talk about the MRGF, but that is a major number that is contributing to Chapter 70 funding formulas. So I'd like to hope we can get going forward a report on enrollment too, and our low-income numbers, so we can have a good idea of that, because people are talking at town hall about hold harmless. We need to understand it among our community.
You're not incorrect. And that is something, so Desi is also pushed, I know we're talking enrollment, has pushed that verification again through into December. So we are still looking at the data. And we'll get that out in January. That's something I was usually doing in December. It's not certified yet.
The budget too. Yeah. It'll help us with the budget when we have to do that.
Your next piece is just the collaborative, Reads Collaborative. It's a reading item. Read it over. If you have questions, shoot them to me. As a member of the board, I get this and want the committee to have a copy. Steve?
Yes, I did want to mention that the Pilgrim Area Collaborative also released their annual report. And if they go out to the member community chair people, so Beth has that, and it can be forwarded.
I'll get it out.
Been voted and everything.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen that yet, because usually I get a copy too.
They usually come at the same time, but we took care of business to get that out.
Had no doubt, Steve. Thank you.
I just have a quick question about collaboratives. How often do we review our use of collaboratives? Because we're using 4 collaboratives, and I did a little research on this. Collaboratives are when you have multiple towns come together, or at least private ones, but they come together to handle extraordinary need. So when we're using 4 different collaboratives, how often do we review that we can in-house or have kids staying in their hometown, staying in their home environment, staying with their friends in the most comfortable environment? That's, and if we're using 4, is there maybe a review? Just want to know what that review is, not today, but down the road.
So the ultimate goal, and this is why when Chris gave her presentation on special education, is to keep our kids home.
Yep.
Absolutely. The benefit of joining in the 2 years that I've been in now, we've joined 2, South Shore and Reeds, is for their specialty areas and the tuition break that we get. So we don't have a tremendous amount of kids out there, but when the tuition breaks are the 26 are collaborative in a different way, plus also, our privates that are out there. But the benefit that we have in the specialty areas and the consults that they can come out and do some different testing for us, OT, PT, that we've actually taken people out of the collaborative. It's more financially beneficial for us to employ those folks. We use the collaboratives in a very positive way. But again, going back to the review of it, we want to keep our kids here. There's no question. I think if anyone knows me from here, I want to keep my kids home. And we don't want to have that. And in that fact, to be efficient, we used to have a part-time out-of-district coordinator, which we've made full-time, who's paid her salary over and over again through bringing kids back here. when towns say they have a part-time person or no person, I raise my eyebrow because it's a cost-saving benefit to pay a salary of somebody who's competent and very good to follow up on our students. Because the goal is, even if it's a short-term, year, 2 years, or elementary, bring them back for middle, bring them back for high. So it's something we do, I don't want to say monthly, but that's a conversation with our out-of-district coordinator. District updates are just quick for me. What I'm going to try to do is gather information from my principals and get it out either in a public meeting that there are events going on, or through email to you and get stuff out there. So we had a great high school concert yesterday. It was outstanding. Certain school committee members, son was outstanding. I have to give a shout. I'm not saying who, just whatever, but it's something I'm going to try to do for us so that you know what's going on. We talked a little bit about Unified, and I did want to say as an update, if people, it's that time of year, it's the holidays. There are more staff members and students and friends of Whitman-Hanson that are struggling with illness this year that I've ever had with major illness, our students. So I would just like people to think about those that are struggling with illness right now, because we have some teachers that are really struggling and we have some students that are really struggling. So publicly, we'll talk about that, but I wanted to make people aware of that. We have quite a few not quite a few, but I have some long-term subs in, and people are dealing with some critical illness that we just wish for the best. The next item is appointment of a Whitman School Committee member. So at a Board of Select Board meeting in Whitman, our selection of Ms. Hill was voted down 3-2 by the by the Select Board. I was not at that meeting. I don't have a why discussion. I don't know what happened. I didn't watch.
They didn't discuss.
They didn't discuss.
I can speak to this. When you are on a finance committee, which I was for almost 9 years, you are saying no financially, and you can build up tension if they have an agenda. And that's so it's a political sort of thing, whether that is the case or not. I do want to speak about this position because this is a position that serves our finance committee, and it's telling our finance committee what we need, essentially, and the town, but primarily it serves as their guide to financing. And so on the merits, I would have been the best person. So I can only assume that it's political. Essentially, one of the things that we have to do, or whoever is selected, is understand that we have to provide services equally in terms of capital. One of the issues that came up was that one group of students at one point didn't have the same materials in the other town, between the towns. Something Jeff brought up is maybe we need to go handle capital within our school. I would agree with that, particularly because it is so political. We can kind of see that they don't even want to look at this financially for the best. So I would ask that person sort of do a review of what their obligation to equity and understanding that it is, when you send it over, it is absolutely something they have to put before the taxpayer, and listen carefully, because there are also a long list of building projects and capital that's already been there for many years, something I would have had a very good idea of, how many fire trucks, ambulances, and other things. So it was very surprising they chose politics over competency. It is not in service to the public, in my opinion, but ultimately, I would be happy to work with anybody that did, and maybe they could consider changing the day for somebody if they couldn't do it. So that would be my ask.
So what we really need is a volunteer.
Do we have a volunteer? Stephen?
Thank you, Stephen.
So I'll submit that to Mary Beth. Okay. I don't know when their next meeting is. Thank you, Stephen.
Hopefully you think.
Thanks. Mr. Reno. So
if not, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Good.
Anything you want, Steve.
So before Rick gets up here, so let me just introduce, this is Rick Reno, former executive director of the South Shore Collaborative, former business manager, Dighton Rehoboth, former business manager at Sandwich. Rick is helping us out, and we're in a little bit of a bind. I have some serious personnel issues in our business office right now. I can say is I have serious issues in our business office right now. Rick is here on a temp basis. He will be leaving us on December 20th to be the treasurer of the South Shore Education Collaborative. He can't work in a dual effort because we are members there. Rick came on board right before Thanksgiving, I think. He's doing like a 20-day stint to make sure that we have some things in order. He is not well-versed in everything that we have done here tonight, so he's here to kind of present a little bit. I will gather questions from the group if needed and get information as we can. But we are at a deficit of 2 people in our business office right now. There was a resignation to move to another district in October. We actually are interviewing through a temp agency right now to fill that position, and I'll go into it a little bit later in the meeting about why. But Rick has done a nice job of making sure we're paying our bills, hitting where we have to hit, and keeping the business office in one respect afloat. So before Rick goes into anything, FY24, he doesn't necessarily have everything here. We are finishing up our end of the year report. I know there's been some extensions, and I will say again why we've needed those extensions. It will be done by December 31st. We are okay, and after December 31st, we will move into January with whatever is going to be placed into E&D as we progress into the new year of 25. Rick has some information on closures of FY24, like capital and things like that, and they are in your packet. Our quarterly report, to the best we could put together, is in your packet. And Rick, you can speak from there if you would like.
Well, the first thing I had, welcome everybody, and nice to meet you all.
He's like, see ya.
Anyway, the first thing I wanted to talk about is the what we used to call old bills in my other district, the FY24 invoices. They total $32,126.31. I apologize for the late revision that was sent out just this morning. We just got those Home Depot invoices this morning, so we decided to try to get them docket tonight. I would recommend that the committee approve or authorize us to pay those bills so we can clear them off the books.
Motion in the amount of $32,126.31 to pay unpaid invoices.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Glenn, second.
Discussion? Okay. We've got a period of time in which we don't have accounted for spending. And if you would take this from your own home spending, imagine you didn't keep track for 2 months and you're going to go spend money again.
Can I just pause you? These are the 24 invoices, so we're closing those books. Yes.
These are not.
So I know your point here. That's fine. Can we just get the 24 invoices going?
So do we have the
Yes,
end of the
yes,
year
yes.
amounts?
Yes, we're fine with the 24. This is FY24
See
budget.
that, but, okay. When I went in, I didn't see.
Okay. Dawn?
I have a couple questions on invoices, and I understand if Rick isn't able to, but I'm going to share these questions.
Sure.
And at the last meeting, we did approve some invoices for FY24. So I would ask, what are the internal processes, and maybe this speaks to what you kind of alluded to earlier, but we're getting more invoices that were missed from last year. I'm seeing like an invoice related to graduation, and they're really covering a lot of different departments too, and it's not to single out a staff member, that's not, but it's just, some is academic related, some is, athletics related, some is, so it's not even
It's not one area.
Not to cast blame, like one person's just holding all their invoices for the year. It seems to be a lot of little pieces here and there. So can you give any?
Can I elaborate on that?
Or
Well, it shouldn't be happening. We've always had invoices that run. Every year there are, but not to this extent.
And that's
it goes
what
to,
I'm feeling,
it goes to some of the internal issues that should have been done in June and July.
Okay. I am going to bring a question forward specifically. There's one, Northeast Traffic Technologies. So this is related to the school zone feedback sign system. The quote in the packet, it's around page 17 of the original packet, so I'm not sure where that falls in the revised packet. The quote was $9,500. The town of Hanson provided documentation, they paid $3,500. So the remainder is $6,000 due, and we're being asked to pay $4,750 of the $6,000 due. So I think my question is really what's the origination of this, and Hanson's paying for some of it?
Yes, so I remember that.
Okay.
That was a conversation that I had with Chief Mix on a lighting grant that he received, something he received that we needed to put in at Indian Head. So he asked me if I could split the cost. Hanson did not split the cost. The $4,500 is splitting the cost on that safety equipment that Chief Mix wanted to put in at Indian Head.
Okay.
If I can recall that off the top of my head.
Is it the blinking sign now? Because that's new.
I believe
So
so.
they put like a new sidewalk like to cross right there because it's a death trap when you try to cross. Route
That's
58.
correct. It was a light
And now they
project
were
outside of Indian Head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to speak personally to our other elementary school in Whitman, that just a couple months ago, I realized there wasn't even, the speed limit was 35 miles per hour. This is at Duval School. It didn't even say 20 miles per hour for school zone. So I did reach out to administration, chair, and between Jeff and the town of Whitman, we now fortunately have a 20 mile per hour sign there. It doesn't equate to the same fashion of this blinking light that seems that the town of Hanson has paid for. So I'm concerned again. All our schools, we're one district. So I would hope that all students are given the same safety measures. That's all I'm going to say on that invoice. So and I really am still confused by it's $6,000 and we're short paying it. So I don't know if they're going to come back and ask for the remainder of that. There's an air quality test invoice for Indian Head, page 33. It's called TRC. I recall, a couple of years ago, I asked for air quality at Whitman Middle School, and the response was on the facilities subcommittee that we'll test air quality in all the schools. So I don't know if this was a circumstance of someone spotted something, if we can have a little feedback on this as Indian Head Music Room, but are we doing air quality in all the schools regularly?
Yes, we are, and that was a specific air quality test because the music room was moved, and we're the music room right now, and the teacher was like, it smells really bad in here. And we realized that the koi pond outside of that music room was venting into the music room, and the koi pond hadn't been cleaned in years. So an air quality test, because people thought it was mold, so we did the testing, it didn't come out like that, so we had to identify where the root cause was, and it was the koi pond right there that was bringing it in. So yes, we have air quality tests as regulated by the Commonwealth is what we have to do. But if we have a specific, something's going on at any school and there's a concern, especially around mold, we do an air quality test.
Right, okay. The last invoice says $600, Weston and Sampson Service. They are an engineering environmental consulting firm.
That one I'm not familiar with.
Yeah, they're out of Boston, Worcester, Foxborough, Reading, and it's $600. It's towards the end, Weston and Sampson Services. There's a PO, and it actually looks like it says 2016. It's $600, but again, I just want to be diligent in asking.
Nope, I understand.
I am going to revisit the traffic light situation only because I've advocated for safe routes to schools and to partner with this organization that provides signs and lines and so forth. You all have heard me say it again and again. But ironically, if you go on their website, on mass.gov, Indian Head School is already a partner with Safe Routes to School. So I believe the town of Hanson and the district is being asked to pay for something that very well may have been available at maybe less or no cost for signs and lines. I don't know how they became a partner. They were already a partner.
Yeah, it was
They're
a while
listed.
ago, I think we found
No,
out.
but they still.
So I can't answer the Weston and Sampson. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. Out of the hundreds of invoices we have, I can find out for you. But I just need the approval of these invoices to get them off the 24 books before we close.
So just also to build on John's, the regional agreement is a certain amount of money, total cost, the total of the price of the capital item. So the capital item exceeds this. This is the town of Hanson's bill. Now, I personally think that keeping these kids safer is a priority, but I want to bleed right back to a conversation we had earlier about needing to centralize, because John's representing maybe, we had things from Hanson, Hanson didn't get things, centralizing this capital and making sure that we're not running essentially two different districts, which we're not supposed to do under 71. It causes more stress for finances, it causes more stress.
So on that note, you and I talked a little bit about it, and I did bring it up at regional agreement around centralizing capital. So I
really
think
did.
during regional agreement, we can maybe touch on that.
Yeah, and when we can see the problems right here, was we're losing opportunities, we're not aligned with grants, and this is costing money, and I'm unsure even to approve this, quite frankly, because of it.
Got anything to say?
Pertains to the Duval signage.
And the middle school too, that signage too. Whitman absorbed the flashing of middle lights, the other one too. It wasn't just the Duval.
No, but I was just going to speak to the Duval sign.
Okay.
So the Duval sign, there was the issue of, we did receive a quote that if we were to put a flashing sign in, I didn't have money to appropriate that quote because it was after the fiscal year had started. So I said, I don't have that money to pay for that. The town said, we can put up a sign there that doesn't have the solar flashing piece, and then we could look at it another time. So I said, that sounds good. And then Bruce Martin from the DPW is the one that they put up. So that's what my memory recollection is of that. I don't know what it's about.
There's another flashing line near the middle school that they also put up.
Yeah, but that was the DOT.
That was DOT.
The middle school one they took, that was a totally different one. That was
The state.
One last year was, there is a rule that says on a state-owned highway, you can no longer have the grandfather in clause.
Okay.
So what took place at the old Muffin Master, I don't know what it is now, at the top of Hilltop Avenue with that, they used to have a button there, and it used to be the light. They just showed up. They just showed up and took that down. And they didn't replace it because they can't replace it. And they deemed in their traffic study that it was not viable to put a full light that used to be there. And then, remember, the crossing guard could control it in the box so we could let kids go. So then that ended up with, we had a conversation with Assistant Chief Bombardier, Assistant Chief Handling, 3 people from the state came down, Department of Transportation came down, and they basically explained to us that their engineers go out, they do traffic studies, and according to their yada, yada, yada reports, that's what they were doing, and that's how that came up. But the one on the street sign that you referred to at Duval was they put that up because there was no money allotted to put that up at the time that it was going.
That's a section of state highway.
Was there money allotted now? For this, on the article, was there money allotted for the one that we have right now?
At Whitman?
And right now, we're paying that bill, right? No, the one in Hanson.
That's Hanson. That was done through a grant, and that was done prior to that. All I'm saying is, all George Farrell can attest to is that I just knew about the Duval sign not having it.
It was partially done through a grant, not, the 4,000 is now being asked from us, so it's partially.
That was my recollection with Chief Mix, yes, about the Hanson piece.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor?
Centralize.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor?
And a second, do we?
Yeah.
Yes.
We do.
Yeah, I think you said.
I did second.
Okay, so all in favor of paying the past due invoices, please raise your hand. Okay, and opposed? Okay, Dawn and Rosemary opposed.
Thank
Okay,
you.
it is passed, okay.
So you also have, we are, in your packet, you see building projects or capital projects. I'm like building projects, and got building projects on my mind. Capital projects where we've been able to close certain building projects in FY24 and FY25. So you'll see that the town will be receiving some funds back into their capital accounts once we close those building or capital projects. So just for instance, we finish a roadway that was approved in fiscal 24 or fiscal 23. We finally finished the project. There's a surplus of $3,000. By closing that out, that money will go back into the Whitman or Hanson capital account. And if it's a high school project, it's a 60-40 split. So you'll see that in your packet. Like I said, the quarterly report right now, you have revenues through October. You have expenses through August. What George and I found out today, and the reason it's a challenge, we will fix it. Came across every time there's a payroll. Every time there's a payroll, all the payroll folks have to be inputted to Munis or into the line items manually. So there's no cross between Harper's and Munis in the line items that they're supposed to be. We have all the people, we have all the budget for them. For us to show a proper Munis report, and I'll give you an example, a paraprofessional at Duval, Sally Smith, comes in through Harper's as Smalley Smith at Duval. The person who's John Stambrook right now then takes Sally Smith and says, oh, she's a para at Duval, and has to put it in a line item for paras at Duval. We found that out at 1:30 today. We will expedite that process because it seems like man hours not being efficiently used, and that's why we don't have a quarterly up-to-date report around payroll. We are okay with money. Some folks have said, we don't want to be what Brockton is. We will never be there. We watch where our accounts are. We're not running in the red, but I could give you something, but you're going to see a deficit in expenses right now because we haven't put that number in, or it's just been lumped in. So that's where we're at.
Just point of clarification, our job is to know those numbers. That is the budget. This is us. That means when things go wrong, it's our fault. So without that information, it's going to be hard to spend money without knowing where we're at, without having the materials. Additionally, we are paying, and I know there are circumstances, but for 3 business managers, it's my understanding we are. 3 business managers. So 3 people, that one person's supposed to do that job. Jeff, we got to do something, whether it be an emergency meeting once you get those in and you rush to get those in, because I can't see moving forward, particularly entering into budget season without that information. It would be irresponsible. And we started this.
Chair.
Oh, sorry.
So, to Rosemary's point, I do want to say in regards to our fiduciary responsibility. So yes, I brought up the town of Brockton, and you can Google it if you're not familiar with their fiscal crisis that they went through, and there's over a 200-page audit. And I am going to, and I hope you'll give me some latitude here, because we didn't discuss budget last month either. Page 5 of the Brockton audit review says, our review revealed the school committee was not an engaged overseer of the school district's finances. They found little evidence of the school committee asking questions about what was actually spent in any given year for any budget category, nor did the school committee ask probative questions throughout the budget process.
So something just crashed over there, so nobody's leaving your...
No, I know, in the last closing part says, during the fiscal year, the school committee was never provided with current information to show how actual spending compared to the budget amounts that the committee had approved. And then it says that the FY23 deficit in Brockton did not become a serious concern until March or April of 23, when it was too late to avert a financial crisis. So I ask these questions, and I want to take the time. I know this is a long meeting, but because we only meet once a month, we're here. And thank you, Jeff, for doing the work needed to get us the reports. But I want to make sure we're asking these questions so nobody comes back and says, this committee didn't ask. Okay.
So can I respond?
Yes.
The most I can't even say the amount of stress that is personal, because I know your responsibilities, and hey, if this is a problem, I like my job, okay? And it's my responsibility to give you the information. I can only give you what I have tangible, and we only meet once a month and in public. I can't share things privately necessarily for discussion. I'm in a hole right now that we're going to talk about in about 15 minutes. I can just say that you've had faith in me in 7 years. If we were in a problem, I would come to you with a problem. And I also understand that you need to see numbers. We've always been a little bit behind in showcasing some of these numbers. I'll try to get you these numbers as I can. Again, as I walk through some of the other pieces that we're still working with, and I talked about the FY24 closure, we're still finishing up the FY22 audit, which has taken, I can't even tell you the hundreds of man-hours of paper that has gone into the FY22 audit. Beth was on a call with the auditor yesterday with me, just to make sure that she heard what I heard, should share it with you folks. The audit they're on site on December 18th. The audit should be, for FY22, will be completed, the financial pieces will be completed the first week of January. So we can go to our building project so we can have a bond rating. But I'll discuss a little bit more about the why, but I absolutely understand your sources of concern right now. But what I can tell you is we are okay financially right now to continue with our payroll expenditures moving forward. If I feel that we need to have a freeze in the budget, I will tell you folks that we need to have a freeze. That's not uncommon, but I also don't want to raise panic like we're underwater, and we've expended ESSER monies that weren't there. And I think that was part of the problem in the other district that was brought up here. Our ESSER monies are gone. We expended those last year. So that's something that if you're watching from a side where I sit, I saw some of the spending that was going on, and you were staffing through a grant that was now being split between the city and the school department. So all I can ask you is that, and I can work on getting documents as soon as I can get you documents, while balancing, making sure we have the closure of 24, the running of 2025, the planning of 26, and the expenditures of 25. That's what I got going on right now. So I'm not upset, but I just want the committee and I want the public to know where we're at right now. We're rowing a boat with half an oar. So
Can we clarify that at no point are we saying our superintendent is a problem or any individual is a problem, that it's a systematic problem from the structure of and elements of reach and other things, from how our regional school is structured. It is not a staffing issue. So essentially, Jeff is running 3 different regional schools financially, and we've sort of demonstrated loss of finances through the not having the broader grant and the disconnect, the application towards even just safety and B-boards and other things, because we have a little bit too much interference towards our educational equity and from the towns that aren't focused on education. They're only focused on how do we get that cheapest price. And so we've got to correct some structural things and correct some data entry mistakes. But at the same tone, it is, we cannot just say, trust me, we're fine. We need it on paper, and I need the documents. So to put it out there, so the town knows. You've got a school committee that is hard on this, and you've got a superintendent that's in a crunch that is systematic, caused by how we're structured, not his ability. So
we'll get those I'm trying to answer your question,
And if I may, one follow-up, and I don't know if Rick has, because I do have a specific question on the capital through October document. It is
capital through October of...
FY25 capital projects through October. It's on page 2. So in the middle of that page, you have the legend, right? And it shows the orange, gray, and yellow, sort of, and that makes reference to the coding.
Yep.
But just below that, it says the date of June 13th, 2024, and there's 4 lines with 4 funds there. I'm not sure who created this document, and I'm trying to understand, in particular, the high school network switches. So if you're looking at this, it says $10,708.29. I'm not sure what that's telling us right there, but if you go to then page 6, which is just a half page, it has a block of orange. Page 6, it also has that same amount, $10,708, but it says it's the Whitman Middle School feasibility, and this is being refunded to Whitman. So this is part of the turn back money. So if
So go to, what page was that second one?
6.
It's page 3 in the
Page 3. And
Oh, yeah, okay.
Looking at,
No, in the back.
It's on the back.
In the back.
Flip. Yeah. See, it says 10,703.
In the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if it's a matter,
So let me clarify that
the
with John. Yeah.
label is
Yep.
given to that dollar amount, but it's being called, it's
I see
oddly
it.
unique, that
Yep.
amount is same, but it's called feasibility or network switches.
Yeah, that's not a coincidence.
No.
I don't think. So let me look at that. I don't have an answer for that.
And I don't stay up around the clock looking at this, but my eye.
Money's your thing, we know that, accounting. Yeah.
So as you, if you peruse these, and I heard the committee clearly, and again, we'll talk a little bit later, but we will go into that. Thank you, Rick. Thank you for your 10 minutes.
Thank you for
And
helping.
we'll see you. We'll see you. And
We
I
appreciate it.
think Rick, if you want to get a sidebar with Rick, he can attest to how hard the folks are working upstairs as a new person, as we go through this. So thank you. And we're so busy that I put transfers on. We're not doing transfers today, so that's a Passover. Okay, there's nothing in your packet about transfers today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Decker.
All right, so next we have field trip approval for the DECA conference.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, that's going to the Quincy for the district conference. All in favor? Okay, unanimous.
Regional agreement.
Okay, subcommittee reports. Do we have a RAC report?
Yep.
Hillary.
We met in November. We're meeting next week. I think the biggest thing, we started to talk about capital, as Jeff and Rosemary talked about, and sort of, it was productive in the sense that hearing from the town administrators and the leadership in both communities about how they handle capital on their capital subcommittees. So just for example, Whitman has a school committee person sit on their capital subcommittee. Hanson does not. And to the Hanson people at the meeting, they were surprised, and they were also like, well, that's a great idea. And we thought so too. And so I think that is probably, I think that might be one of the easier things, maybe not. Nothing's easy. I think that that's the biggest thing with this, right? We kind of cap our meetings at an hour just because it's Wednesdays, and we have agendas that have 3 things on them, and we get through 1.5 of those things. It is a huge process, and I mean, the regional agreement, it was amended in 2020, but it really hasn't been touched since, I feel like, the inception of the regional school district. So there's a lot of stuff in there that needs to be changed. So it is daunting. We still have a goal of trying to get it to the towns in May. It's a lofty goal, perhaps, but we're working towards it. So.
And there's some things that we're bringing up. George and I brought up a proposal. We made some good headway. We have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Around some things, and hopefully we can get that done. And if we can't, it'll be fiscal 27 by the time we get it done. What middle school? You want to give it?
Oh, yes. Well, I want to do something happy, so.
Yeah, it's really good.
Get something happy in here, right?
Yep.
So yesterday, we met via Google, and we had to submit and release the 100% construction document to the state. So in other words, all the stuff is in, everything from soup to nuts, going to be sent to the MSBA. And as of December 26th, I believe Mike said, they're going to submit the bids out for the construction on the day after Christmas. So their hope is right now, either in March, probably the end of March maybe, or sometime March, beginning of April, will be the dig to start on the project.
So January 8th will be the day where prospective general contract bidders will be at the middle school, so that they can get a lay of the land, they can get a tour. Not really much to see except they're going to take down, but they can see the back and they can see different things. You will see sometime in March, expected is like somewhere around March 21st throughout the world, will be some of the relocation of the existing bus route, some of those changes. They will be Jackson Field. They'll still have access to Jackson Field, which is the fenced in soccer field on the right. That's going to stay at least for another season. But then that's where they're going to start staging field work in the open area. So there's some coming to fruition.
Very shortly.
On that front field, so that other part, is it, because when I was there the other day, I noticed that all the soccer stuff is off that front field. Is that to get ready?
It's only the fenced in field. So the front field that doesn't have a fence, so you drive into school, you drive down, after Port Bell, drive down the driveway. There's one immediate field that's not fenced in. That's going to be a staging area taken off. Jackson Field is going to be the one that is, I guess, saved. That they're going to have like a walking path to, so that they can go. It is going to be one of those things where like town can be like, oh, stay over, just go to that space, don't try to run, jump, and go play, and all that stuff, because it's going to be a live experience.
Yeah, and it will be all fenced in. They'll be doing that shortly. They've gotten just about all, they've gotten the zoning board approvals, and they're just, what was the one they were waiting to see?
Oh, you're putting me on a spot, I don't know.
I forget, one of them. But everything's been approved, so it looks great that everything is being vetted and everything looks good.
And the monies look good too. We're
Yes.
under right now.
We're under
which is good.
right now.
Which is good. And still, the plan is to soft open in February of 27.
After vacation.
And then hard open with grade 5 in September, August of 27. So the students that are in the existing building will have 3 months to see their new building, especially those 8th graders who are going to see it break ground and all the way up, so they get an experience. So that's the goal, if everything can be on track. All we got.
So we're hoping. So that's why I wanted to say happy stuff.
Yeah.
Happy stuff.
Exec session.
Okay, any public comment? No public comment. Okay, then we need a motion to go into executive session to conduct strategy sessions and preparations for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. Contract negotiations with superintendent will also include an update on potential litigation. Okay? So.
Second.
Okay, and we need to, a roll call. Stephanie?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Rich?
Yes.
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 And me, yes. Okay, we are in executive session.